Listen, okay? I know I'm not supposed to be doing this. The council was very clear in its decision not to go public, and I voted with them. The things happening here would not be believed. Actually, they shouldn't be believed. Because to believe in these things, these events, would mean the very concept of our perception of reality is wrong. The kind of information that can be dangerous in the wrong hands. Now, I won't be responsible for mass public panic. I won't be responsible for this town going bankrupt. I do, however, have to tell somebody something. The weight of it is so much to bear by myself. Our town surrounds a lake. The lake is huge. So big that when you're in the middle of it, the surrounding landscapes are but a flat edge on the horizon. There are virtually no islands, and it's deep. Deeper than most lakes I've ever come across. The lake is also the single biggest contributor to our economy, mostly known through tourism, fisheries, housing developments, and cottage rentals. I had been on the town police force for a few years before the summer of 2013, and it was your typical picturesque small cottage town, with only the occasional bar fight or break-in to deal with. There were also a handful of police to begin with, because our town hadn't seen a murder in over 30 years until 2013. We were a haven, a place where people could and did feel safe. Now, I can't give you any more details than that. I can't tell you where we are. I won't give you our real names. We've covered these events up for good reason. I hope. These are my personal observations occurring over the past few years. July 16th, 2013. Several reports of an abandoned boat in the middle of the lake. We are sent to investigate because no one will go near it. Townspeople who observe the boat tell me that they feel compelled not to go near it, as if they were being controlled against their will. Superstitions run rampant amongst these parts. So I shrug it off and I chalk it up to creative excuses not to haul the thing in themselves. And I take my partner in our police-issued aluminum 10-footer to see who this boat belongs to. And after about 10 minutes we spot it. And I immediately sense a something. The feeling is hard to describe. It was comparable to when you were walking through the woods and you come to an unfamiliar territory. Your senses become heightened and you can almost taste the foreign nature of the land. And it was like that out on the water, as if we had floated into an alien landscape. I no longer laughed to myself about what the townspeople had said as I cut my motor and I glided towards the small wooden boat. My partner, usually intolerably talkative, he went silent. No, that's not right. Everything was silent. The wind died, and the water went still. The day that had been sunny and clear suddenly seemed to dull and darken within moments, like someone had pulled down a dimmer switch on the world. And I used our oars to guide ourselves parallel to the abandoned vessel, reaching out with my hand to grab the side of whose ever boat it was. And as soon as I touched the railing, I felt a chill run up my body. I mean that quite literally. A cold sensation seemed to crawl into my hand and then up my arm and into my chest. And my partner started screaming frantically. He was panicked and terrified beyond anything that I had ever seen from a grown man. I decided to leave without the boat and get my partner back to the station immediately. And later that evening, when he had calmed down, he whispered to me that he had seen something when I touched the boat. He said it was a figure, a sack of meat and bones that rose out of the water in front of him. It had raised a skeletal arm and pointed at him, chattering exposed teeth together with a jawbone that flailed back and forth. He never came back to work after that, and I never found the boat again. July 27th, 2013. Any town's worst nightmare. A visiting family of 4. A man and his wife with 2 children. One a 10-year-old boy and the other a 6-year-old girl. They rented a small fishing charter boat in the morning and headed out. A beautiful clear day in the forecast. And I got a chill in the evening. A call that I never want to hear. The charter had returned with only the mother on board. She was hysterical and covered in blood, muttering incomprehensibly. And I arrived just after the ambulance, and I expected to find a woman beside herself with fear and panic. What I found was worse. In a way. She was calm, composed and talking to the paramedics logically and sensibly. I asked her what happened, and she told me that during lunch, she had been suddenly overwhelmed with the compulsion to pick up a bait knife on the deck and stab her husband and children to death. She proceeded to dump their bodies into the lake and return home. As the only licensed rescue diver within the department, I took my boat out and I followed the woman's GPS coordinates from her vessel and drove down to where she said she had dumped the bodies. And after 6 hours and over 3 dives, I was unable to recover any evidence. Later on, the woman threw up her husband's finger on the police station floor. August 18th, 2013. Over the last week, we have received many calls from different people claiming that they have been hearing screams coming from the north side of the lake. Some say that the screams sound like a woman. Some say that they sound like a man. And others say that it was a child. I had been staking out various locations over the past few nights in my car when all of a sudden I heard it. The unmistakable sound of someone screaming. Not in pain or distress, but of pure terror. Definitely a woman screaming. The sound was originating offshore, coming from somewhere on the lake. I radioed in and I had my partner bring a patrol boat my way. She arrived and I hopped in, telling her the direction for which I heard the scream. The sky was starless, overcast and pitch black. We swiveled our searchlight across the water, searching for the source of the screaming. And the search went on for hours. And we were about to give up when our light caught a glimpse of something. Not something. It was someone. Maybe. I can't even be sure now. Because they weren't on a boat. And they weren't swimming or floating in the water. This thing, this person was hovering above the water. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would never have believed it. Their back was turned to us, and they weren't shrouded in some sort of long, dark cloak. They hovered there, feet a few inches above the water as my partner and I froze on that spot. And then the thing slowly began to turn, rotating towards us. And I'll admit it, I closed my eyes. I didn't want to see. My partner told me that she did the same. All we know is that a few seconds after closing our eyes, we heard the scream again. And that this time it sounded like a baby screaming. I panicked, fumbling for the motor, and blindly directed our boat anywhere that wasn't where we were. I opened my eyes again and I dared, for a split second, to glance back. And the thing was still there. I could even tell without the light. And then I swear, it waved at me. My partner and I didn't talk about it on the way back to the station. In fact, we never talked about it. September 28th, 2013. I was on the overnight shift. I hadn't been on the water since the last time, but I was alone in the station, and I knew it was my duty to go out if I got a call. And sure enough, I got an anonymous report of a capsized boat near the south edge of the lake. Someone who had been driving on the lakeshore road and spotted it offshore. I took a patrol boat out to the location given and spotted the overturned vessel pretty easily. Her belly was exposed, I knew that I was going to have to go under and check for survivors. I geared up and I dove into the pitch black waters, my patrol boat's lights barely able to penetrate the darkness. Visibility was low. Something had churned up the silt and mud on the bottom, and the boat was small, and it didn't take me long to search it. I found him tucked away in one of the closets. I didn't recognize him, but I wasn't sure anybody would have. His legs had been wrenched up so that way his body was essentially folded in on itself. I will never forget the image of his feet up near his head, his toes pointing behind him. His face was contorted into something inhuman. His gaunt cheeks were stretched out and his eyes were almost bulging out of their sockets, like he had died in the middle of one of the most terrifying screams. And I turned around and I began to ascend when I saw another body floating below my boat. At least, I thought that they were floating. And then it wasn't a body. It was actually a person walking on the bottom. But they didn't have any gear on. No vest, no snorkel, nothing. And they weren't exactly walking. This person was, for lack of a better term, dancing, kicking their heels out. I started to swim towards them, but at that moment my lights died, and I was cast into almost complete darkness. My boat lights on the surface, my only source of illumination. And I ascended then, momentarily forgetting about the person on the bottom in my panic. But I know. I just know that I heard something before I broke onto the surface. And I'm pretty sure that it was someone singing. I'll report more soon. When people start dying around you, everyone has a different way of coping. I suspect most people are like me. And when the years go by, you think back, and you realize that most of the time is blurred together. There is no cohesive linear timeline. There are only points on the edge of a circle, snapshots of things that you remember. Going over these reports, I realized that my memories, the things that I flash back to, are so incomplete. There are so many details that I have shuffled away in some drawer in my mind that I decided that I should never open again. I think that I can start to see patterns emerging. It was after I found the man who had been murdered on his boat that the mayor decided to pay the station a visit. He looked to be about 100 years older than the last time that I'd seen him. The stressful days in the office withered him away like a rock in a permanent sandstorm. I only caught a few of the lines spoken between him and our chief before they went into his office. Essential and imperative. I knew then that I had to continue to document everything that was happening in our town. Winter hit us particularly hard in 2013 and 2014. Temperatures never rising above freezing and the wind bringing with it a cold that you could feel in your bones every time that you stood outside. The next experience I have started on December 17th, 2013. I got a call from Ruth Holman telling me that her husband is missing. Temperatures are 20 degrees below zero, minus the same with the wind chill. Now I know Ruth. She's reliable. And her husband is the same. If she believes that he is missing and outside, then he has very little time. I grab my partner and we tail it to her place, one of the nicer homes on the edge of the east side of the lake. She runs out frantically to meet us, telling us immediately that her husband was supposed to have been home 3 hours ago. The real worry comes when she tells me that he was crossing the lake. And I looked out to our massive body of water, the choppy surface frozen in a moment of chaos as it tore up and down all throughout the fall before finally turning to ice for the season. And I am not immediately worried about him falling through the surface, which is and has always been thick and sturdy every winter. I worry more about the possibility that he's unconscious somewhere from a fall, the risk of hypothermia probably in these conditions. The lake is currently engulfed in a terrific windstorm, and visibility on the ice is subpar at best. My partner and I sprint towards the lake, knowing time for Ruth's husband is quickly running out. We start from the edge of his property and find his boot tracks pretty quickly. The wind is fierce, but not powerful enough to bury the footsteps, which have been made by a heavy boot and crusted over with ice, leaving a solid boot print in the snow. We get out to about halfway across the lake and his footsteps begin to get a little further apart, indicating that he was running. I can't think of any good reason why he would be doing this. As we continue, the steps get even further apart, like he was full out sprinting. And suddenly, in the middle of the lake, the tracks stop. It doesn't even appear like he slowed down or stopped running. There are tracks, and then there's nothing. I look over to my partner, and it's clear that she came to the same conclusion, because she had a puzzled look about her. It really does look like Ben was here 1 second and then simply gone the next. And I look back, and I can't help but believe that he was running from something. I just know it in my gut. And whatever he was running from, he wasn't fast enough. Even today in quieter moments. I swear I can still hear Ruth wailing in anguish like she did that day. We never found Ben, and Ruth died 2 months later. January 8th, 2014. New Year's has come and gone without incident, and I start to calm myself and I fall into the daily winter routine. A call comes in at 4:30 p.m., just before my shift is over. I hear heavy breathing, but no one speaks. I'm about to hang up when a steady voice breaks the silence. I've transcribed this from the recording on the phone call.
Hello?
Jordan? Is that you?
Yes.
Is everything all right? What's happened?
I had to.
You had to what, Jordan?
I had to do it.
What did you do? Jordan? Jordan, who is that? Is somebody hurt? Jordan, you tell me what is happening right now!
No.
Can you tell me where you are?
Yes.
Are you on the lake?
Come find me.
It takes us 2 hours to find his tent on the lake. He had been ice fishing with his mother. The evidence tells us that Jordan, at some point before calling us, decided to carve his mother up like you would a freshly caught fish. There was no spot in the tent that wasn't covered with some part of her. And after he finished his conversation with me, Jordan carved away at the hole in the ice until it was big enough to stick his head through. And then he held himself under until he drowned. That's what the official report says anyway. According to testimony from his friends and family, the 30-year-old Jordan was a loving son who didn't have a violent bone in his body. And I don't go ice fishing anymore. February 14th, 2014. A man walks into the station, decked out in snowmobiling gear. He sits down on the first chair that he finds and stares blankly at the wall for 10 minutes before we can get him to say a word. He tells his story to no one in particular. He says that he and his wife are visiting friends on the lake, and for Valentine's Day he rented snowmobiles for the two of them. They had been hitting the trails for about an hour before they decided to head back for lunch, cutting across the lake to save some time. He says everything was going fine until he heard a tremendous cracking sound. He stopped and turned his head back around to see that his wife had stopped in the middle of the ice, trembling and visibly afraid. He yelled at her to not move, and he started to crawl back towards her. He said that he was about 10 feet away when he started to feel something below the ice. It is at this point that I ask him to describe what he means, but he simply shakes his head. He says that there was no time, One moment he was within arm's reach of his wife, and the next, the ice below broke upwards. And on this, he was quite adamant. He says that there was no way the snowmobile and his wife broke through. He saw something come out from beneath. He said that he only had a few seconds to see his wife before being dragged beneath the ice. And for a moment, she was right under him, looking into his eyes. And then she was gone. It is at this point that the man breaks down and doesn't say another word for the rest of the night. We head out to where he said it happened. And sure enough, we find one snowmobile. And about 15 feet away, there's a large hole in the ice. Author's note. Later in the summer, we found the snowmobile, but we didn't find her. February 28th, 2014. I came into the station after a few days off, mostly due to the terrible blizzard that had been hitting us for 4 days. I walk up to my partner to say hello, but stop when I see her. She's just sitting in her chair, staring at the wall. She hasn't even heard me come in. Not until I put a hand on her shoulder does she look up at me. And even then, she just barely reacts. Before I can ask her what's wrong, she turns around and hands me a file folder. And I open it to the first page and I see that it was an incident report that she had typed up. Seems that yesterday Judith had came to the station. She lives with her husband on one of the few private islands on the lake. My partner had transcribed what Judith had told her.
I feel silly coming in. I could have called, but my story would sound even crazier on the phone. I can't even be sure that it happened, but I need to tell you before I forget. Before my mind represses it and makes it even more plausible for when I think on it later. Last night, my husband Dave and I settled in on the couch with the fire going, pretty much like we've been doing for the last 3 days because of the blizzard. Instinctively, I got up to answer it, but the look that he gives me makes me stop. And he whispers to me and asks if I can feel it. And suddenly I do. It hits me in the face, and it makes my knees weak. Dave told me later that it felt like that moment before everything went to hell in Vietnam. You can't touch it, or even grab it, because it's just a feeling. But the feeling is overwhelming. Something is wrong. And the knocking continues. It's constant but not forceful. It almost sounds like a tree branch tapping away at a window, but it's too rhythmic to be something like that. And Dave and I quietly go to the door. And when we're about a foot away from it, the knocking suddenly stops. And Dave takes a deep breath and yells out in his most intimidating voice, "Who is it?" And at first there isn't a response. I put my ear to the door, and that's when I hear this terrible sucking sound. Like when someone smacks their lips together, you know. And I peel away from the door. I don't like that sound. I picture a rotting corpse, decaying flesh bouncing up and down in the wind. Its jaw just smacking together as it stands outside of our door. And then Dave grabs his hunting rifle and rips the door open, and nothing. No one's there. But I let out a gasp when I look down and I see very clear footsteps coming towards our door. Dave closes and he locks the door, panic in his eyes. Now Davey doesn't get scared, ever. So this made me really scared. He told me to say nothing to anybody. And so we went back to the couch, and after several drinks, we managed to get some sleep. I'm only coming to you today because when I looked down, I saw footprints leading up to the door. But I didn't see any leading back out.
My partner then tells me that she was supposed to go this morning and check up on them, at Judith's behest. She tried calling at first. And after it rang and rang, someone finally picked up. But she doesn't think that it's Judith or Dave. All she heard was a horrible sucking sound. She said that she practically ran over there only to find the door open and Dave and Judith missing. To this day, no sign of them has ever turned up.
I can only describe what happened. I don't know if I can tell you what happened. You get it? Okay. When the snow starts to fall, we go up north to the cottage. The usual crowd is coming. 3 couples and 2 others. I'm in the other column. Me and Marcus Stover. Or the Stove Man. Call him that since we were kids. He's the 3rd generation of men who sell wood-burning stoves to the cottages up north. So, Stove Man. Stove Man and his family do real well. The cottage could fit 20 people comfortably, but I pack the tents away. If the temperature holds, Stove Man and I will tent outside. And it better hold. I can't be inside. I don't want to be inside. It reminds me of her. Daryl and Joanna, DJ, are already waiting. The 2 of them hugging and leaning against their hatchback when Stoveman and I park at the end of the long gravel driveway. DJ, because they're practically inseparable, 10 years together and they're still attached to each other wherever they go. Daryl is annoyingly handsome. The type of tall, beefy jock that you hate immediately when you meet him, but love him 5 minutes later. Fiercely loyal, and once you get him rolling with laughter, it's hard not to join in. He's got one of those high-pitched giggles, and he laughs at almost anything. Joanna, the J of DJ, is short, muscle-toned, and whip-smart. She eyes me carefully. And I'm trying to hold it together, but everything around here reeks of her. Literally. I smell it when I step out of the car. Pine. The towering evergreens dominate the thick forest that we're in. And I do what I can not to look at them. And Daryl comes in for a hug, as he always does, while Joanna simply nods and extends a hand. She's still the only woman I know whose handshake crushes yours, no matter how hard you go in. She throws me a casual smirk when I try, unsuccessfully, to hide the tinging pain in my hand after she lets go. And after the greetings are done, we all turn to stare up at the cottage. The front door is at the end of a long, narrow 100-meter-long pathway that can only be traversed on foot, as the dense forest creeps in on both sides. The cottage sits embedded in a massive man-made grass hill, so the basement is really in the ground. The main floor has a deck that faces this small lake that sits tucked in between the trees. We've all been coming here for winter for almost 15 years. But something about the way that this cottage sits in the middle of this encroaching thick sea of trees makes me realize how alone we really are up here. No one for miles. Even the newly erected cell phone tower does little to penetrate the canopy of evergreens, and usually the isolation and privacy is a comfort. Usually. Paul and Alan are next to arrive. Paul's a military man with a military family. A military man. That's the extent of what we know about Paul and what he actually does every day. We just don't ask anymore because the answer is always the same. A simple shrug of the shoulder, a sly smile from the corner of his mouth. He's always watchful, analyzing everything that you do and everything that you say. And don't ever play poker with Paul. Alan's nice enough, but barely know anything about him. He's the kind of man that you lose at the party within 5 minutes. But he's Paul's, so he's ours. When Paul steps out of the car, we all tackle him, yelling and cheering and hugging and showboating because we all know how much Paul hates that kind of thing. I can practically feel his displeasure at the show of emotion, but I don't care. We're lucky if we get to see Paul once a year. It doesn't matter what kind of person he is to the military. To me, he'll always be the kid who pulled me up off the ground in grade school after Joseph Menson, the resident shithead, threw a shoulder into my back. There's 6 of us now, standing in the driveway, front door to the cottage beckoning 100 meters away. And none of us go towards it. We all know what's ahead of us, which is a wait. Probably a long wait. Brian and Cheryl are next, but they're always late. Always. They arrive 20 to 30 minutes after what time you tell them to meet at. We pull some money together to guess the exact minute their headlights will dot the horizon. My guess is the closest when they arrive, and now I've got a fat stack of cash to barter with when poker rolls around. Hopefully Paul goes to bed early enough so that way we can get a game in before the sun comes up. Seriously, never play poker with Paul. Stoveman and I always have another bet going on the side, trying to guess the date that Brian and Cheryl will finally break up. We love them both, but separately. Together, they create an unbearable tension that builds through the night, only to predictably blow up when Brian finally annoys Cheryl for the last time. And Brian, quiet, stoic Brian, is the polar opposite of life of the party Cheryl. Now I tell you, opposites attract, but I've yet to see opposites last. 8 of us now. Finally a full party. I grab a couple of bags from the car. DJ are locked in a vomit-inducing embrace. Paul is staring out into the forest and Alan beside him. And while Brian and Cheryl are not so silently having a whisper fight as they pull bags out of the back of their pickup. Stoveman makes the long walk up to the cottage and opens the front door, walking inside and starts to turn on all the lights, opening up windows. Everyone but me follows behind with bags in hand. I'm still at the car, struggling to maneuver the tent bag. I'm hoping to set up before the darkness arrives. I open the back seat and I reach inside when Stoveman comes back out. I hear the crunch of gravel as he stops behind me, his god-awful cologne practically knocking me out. Hey, give me a hand. And he doesn't answer, but he chuckles softly. What's so funny? And I turn around and there's no one there. And I mean no one. I feel my insides plummet, turn to ice. I run around the car, hoping to see him hiding on the other side, and I call out for him. No answer. Then I see him on the deck, at the cottage, 100 meters away. Impossible. I don't know how he did it, but Stoveman's always been good at pranks. That has to be it. At least, that's what I tell myself as I laugh and I try to brush the cold feeling away. Nice one! I scream up at him. But he simply waves. Dinner the first night. Spaghetti. A whole heap of it. I try not to feel sick when I see how much Brian is putting away. He's always been on the heavier side, but you never see that in his face. He was a wrestler and a boxer in college. If our friends ever had to fight to the death, Paul and Brian would be the last two standing. There's probably about 15 different ways that Paul knows how to kill someone with just his hands, but Brian and his ham-sized fists could smash a man in like a rotting pumpkin that's been thrown off of a roof. DJ are actually sharing a strand of spaghetti Lady and Tramp style, and we all groan in unison. When their lips meet, Daryl starts getting with the giggles, and soon we're all in on it. Even Alan's laughing. Which is the first time that I can say that that's happened since I met him. When he gets up to go to the bathroom, I mention it to Paul, who gives me a weird look. Alan's downstairs, he says. In bed, he says. Doesn't feel well, he says. And I jump out of my seat, literally jump and run to the bathroom, yank open the door. And of course there's no one inside. The small window has been opened slightly, and I can hear a howl of wind tearing through the trees. I try and I suppress the shiver that crawls up my back. What the hell? Stoveman asks when I come back. He sees that look on my face and shuts up. The two of us clear the dishes while DJ gets up to pick the game that we'll play tonight. Paul goes downstairs to check on Alan. And in a whisper, Stoveman asks me what's wrong. And what the hell do I tell him? And in the end, I say nothing. DJ comes back with categories. Great, I think. I'm mentally placing bets on how long it'll take Brian and Cheryl to argue about whether an answer is acceptable. Stoveman reads my mind and flashes his hands out twice, indicating 20 minutes. And I mouth, "You're on." I flash my hands once. 10 minutes. Cheryl's on her third glass of wine now. The decibel level of her voice rises exponentially with each alcoholic drink. And 5 drinks and she'll start challenging people to slap fights. 7 drinks and she's out on the couch for the rest of the night. DJ starts to tickle each other and that's my cue to leave. Paul comes back up and is on the deck, looking up at the full moon. The pale light casts a long dark shadow of Paul on the deck boards. Alan must be feeling better because he's standing beside Paul. The two of them are talking intently about something that they don't want anyone else to hear, because when I slide the patio door open, they cut off mid-conversation. I catch the tail end of it, though, and I'm not really sure how to process it. I need more context. As soon as I come up to the two of them, Alan excuses himself. I won't say that we don't get along, but to me, Alan has always felt like someone standing on the other side of the glass in an aquarium, watching us swim around. I asked Paul about what I had heard the two of them talking about. What did Alan mean when he said, bodies piling up? Paul casts one of his trademark smirks, when you just know that there's a whole ocean of things beneath his surface that you'll never see. Alan likes his metaphors. That's all he's willing to offer. Damn him. I'd hate Paul if I didn't love him, if you get my meaning. I offer him one of my cigarettes, but he declines and goes back inside. And I'm alone on the deck, looking out at the glassy reflection of the shallow lake a few hundred yards out. And I hear splashing. Try to focus, cut through the infinite shadows the moon is casting out. I go to light the cigarette when I freeze, hand trembling. Someone's standing in the water. I think. I can't tell exactly. Could be a small tree. Could be anything, but it isn't. It's a f***ing person. Standing in knee-high water that must be freezing at this point because I can see the breath spilling out of my mouth. It's coming out in small, quick gusts as my breathing picks up. From the way that this person is standing, I just know that they're staring at the cottage. Staring at me. And I'm glued there. The shadows swim across my vision, the silhouette of whatever it is in the water shifting with the breeze. A laugh from Cheryl. On her 6th drink now, I wager. Cuts through the air and I'm pulled out of the trance that I was in. And I look at the lake again. No one's there. I laugh to myself again. Who would do that? Stand out there? And I hear the sound of the door to the basement opening up. Someone's walking out onto the stone patio below the deck, and they stop right beneath my feet. Paul? No answer. Then I hear Brian's voice through the deck board cracks. At least I think it's Brian. Cigarette? He asks. Is it him? It sounds like Brian, and yet it doesn't sound like Brian. His voice sounds strained. Sure, I say, and I start towards the stairs that leads off the deck. No! He shouts, and I'm startled by the intensity of it. 2 fingers shoot up through the deck boards beneath my feet, layers of dirt under the nails. They're like tongues as they clamp around the cigarette. I try to ignore my own hand shaking. What's wrong with me? Everything okay, Brian? I can't bring myself down to peer through the crack beneath the deck board. Why am I worried? It's only Brian. Right? No response. The hand draws away quickly, like it's being pulled. Brian? No answer. I take a deep breath, get down on my knees, and dare a look. There's no one there. First night, and I can't sleep. Stoveman and I ditched the tent idea. I didn't want to go inside, not after what I saw on the lake. My eyes kept darting to the doorway. It's open to the hall, a sliding pocket door that's broken and won't come out. The hall is pitch black, save for the faint orange glow from the nightlight that seeps in through the bottom corner of the doorframe. I think I'm dreaming when I first see the leg fucking tiptoe out, bending like a spider foot. And a man slides into place, like a dead body reversing to an upright stance, straight as a fucking arrow, completely covered in shadow. It came from the direction of DJ's room. It has to be Daryl. No other rooms are in that direction. And then it starts giggling. High-pitched laughs like a hysterical hyena. It's Daryl, but it is not Daryl. It's not Daryl, it's not Daryl, it's not Daryl, it's not Daryl, it's not Daryl. And I scream and I shoot my arm out to turn on the light when the not Daryl stops, cut off like a power failure. His mouth is wide open, like it's splitting his whole face in half. And then it twitches, a spasm like a seizure, and quickly moves back towards DJ's room. I'm up and I'm running and I'm screaming, rip straight for DJ's bedroom and crash through the closed door. Then the lights come on and everyone's yelling and hollering, and Daryl's in the bed. He's in the bed under the covers, not in the hall. Not in the hall. But as soon as I tell Daryl that there's someone in the cottage, he's up and he's puffing all alpha-like. He takes the lead as we search the whole place, waking everyone up, checking every fucking dark corner that we can think of. Nothing. We all grouped together in the living room. Joanna asked me what the hell that was all about. What can I tell them? The truth? And when I explain every weird thing that I've seen since we got there, they all sit there with frightened looks and my stomach plummets again. I can feel the room getting colder. I'm not the only one with a story. And surprisingly, Paul is the first to speak. Guy's like a locked-down 6-foot-tall presidential bunker when it comes to sharing. He looks at me and says that when they were all bringing their bags inside, he saw me standing outside on the deck. No, I fucking wasn't. I was getting the tents in the back seat of my car. Paul just nods his head. I walked out and no one was there. I couldn't make sense of it. Then I heard that you were yelling something and I saw you standing by your car. It's been a long few weeks and I'm pretty sleep deprived. I just chalked it up to that. I'm dumbstruck. I know I saw Stoveman on the deck. Everyone's quiet. I pretend along with everyone else that we don't hear branches breaking somewhere out in the black. And Cheryl speaks up next. Brian looks like a corpse beside her. She tells us all that before bed she went out onto the back porch to follow Brian, who had gone out for a smoke, and found him just standing there. Brian? No response. Cheryl starts towards him, and that's when he's hunched over, started spewing out this long moan of a sob. Racked, strung up, and Brian starts bawling on the spot. I went over to hug him, threw my arms around him. My Brian, I'm sure of it. Because then she turned her head and saw Brian standing right here in the fucking living room, helping Stoveman light a fire. And then Cheryl screams. On the porch then, in the living room, now. We all hear the tap water turn on in the bathroom. And Joanna draws in a loud breath, as if she's been dunked into a lake of ice water. Because she's next to figure out that everyone is already right here in this room. So who the fuck turned on the water? And I'm up in a flash. My reflexes guide my hand to the light switch because I want as much light as possible. The light's already on. And I plunged us into darkness. The bathroom light is the only thing that we see. And I can't fucking move. All of us are frozen to the spot. The water stops running. Then a figure creeps into view, bathed in shadow. Just the shadow in the door frame. And I take a breath. 2. And then it speaks. The words creak out of its mouth like the sound of a branch twisting in the wind. Kill you! No one says anything. I don't even breathe. And it throws back its head and screams, "Kill you, kill you, kill you, kill you!" And it won't stop, it doesn't stop, it doesn't stop, stop! I finally managed to turn on the light, and of course there's nothing fucking there. Nothing. Cheryl's crying. Like a screaming cry. But we all saw it. We all fucking know. And take one look at each other, and in a hurry we group together and turn on every light in the cottage, room by room, never letting one out of sight until the whole place is lit up like an IKEA showroom. I'm sure I'm not the first to think of ditching right then and there. Fuck the clothes and the food and sprint to the car. But after that creeping leg and the wide open mouth of that not Daryl cackling and whatever the fuck that was coming out of the bathroom, I don't want to put one foot outside in the black. Not a chance. I know I'm not the only one. But when I see Paul's face, his impossibly wide eyes tearing up. Motherfucking Paul, I could kill you with every object in the room crying and screaming because he had just seen Alan outside with his face pressed up against the window. And Alan had been laughing and stabbing himself in the eye, and everything inside him was sliding down the window, but Alan was sitting right beside him. And when Paul couldn't be consoled out of the fetal position as Alan held him and DJ were praying together and Bryce was hugging Cheryl and Stoveman was talking with Kelly, I just knew that we had to stay and wait the whole thing out. We couldn't leave. We had to stay and wait this whole thing out. And we couldn't leave and wait. What the fuck? Stoveman had been talking with Kelly. Kelly, no. No! I scream at everyone to freeze, and they all look at me, turn their heads at the same time. I tell them that I just saw Kelly, my Kelly. She was right there! And like an explosion, everyone is shooting out of their seats. We have to figure out how to get to the cars. They seem so far away. 100 meters might as well be a 1 million in the darkness. And we sprint. Daryl suggests that we all sprint as fast as we can down the driveway. 20 seconds, and we could all be in our cars and drive the hell out of here and never fucking talk about it again. Ever again. Tell no one. 20 seconds in the blackness. Even if we all had flashlights, the darkness would be. We wouldn't be able to see jack shit. But I don't care. None of us do. We don't want to spend another minute in the cottage. We have 4 headband flashlights and spread them out. We link arms in a circle, kumbaya, we are the world style like some massive circular starfish slithering against the bottom of the ocean. None of us will let go until we're in the cars. The circle is like this. Brian, Cheryl, me, Daryl, Stoveman, and Joanna. And then we're off. Every crunch of gravel under our feet, every exhale of breath makes me pucker up tighter than when I had to go over a hill in a car, momentarily airborne, and my stomach is doing somersaults. 20 seconds feels like an hour. I'm staring out at the black, walking backwards, face backwards towards the cottage. I don't want to look at it. I'm too afraid the front door will start to open and that fucking leg will start to creep out again. I turn my head and reveal the sickly shapes of trees and the narrow beam of light coming out of my headlamp. They look like people. An eternity later, we reach the first car. Daryl's hatchback. We debated going in separate cars for about 2 seconds. I shove myself into the trunk and I'm the last to get in. DJ are up front. Daryl turns the key. Should have seen it coming. Should have never came outside. The car won't start. The goddamn car won't start. Goddamn start, and we're all yelling at Daryl to, what, fix it? Try again? Holy shit, we have to go back. I'm not going back. No way, no goddamn way, but then Daryl can't move. He's frozen in place. And we're all yelling at him and he doesn't move a muscle. And I'm the first to see why. The headlights are spraying out the front of the car. If the headlights work, why won't the car turn on? I can see the gravel. Weeds sticking out. Grass, woods, people. You can see people. All of us. Not in the car. Not in the car. Not in the car that we're all standing in the woods and we're all looking at each other. Why are we outside? We're in the car. We're in the car. We're in the car. We're in the car! I wake up. And we're all in the living room. The first shade of sunlight is creeping in through the window. Sweet, merciful light. I don't remember walking back from the car. Why can't I remember? DJ are wide awake, on the couch. Brian and Cheryl are sitting across from each other at the kitchen table. Neither speaks. Stoveman is stoking the last dying embers of the wood. 2 small pieces of black charcoal. Final corpses, each breathing out a final orange glow. Paul and Alan are at the table, saying nothing. Paul, Alan. And then it hits me like a fucking sledgehammer. Crushes my face in. 2 of them. 2 of them, 2 of them, 2 of them. Brian, Cheryl, me, Daryl, Stoveman, Joanna, Paul, Alan. Where the fuck were they? They never came with us. Never. They weren't there. No way we fit 8 in the hatchback. Now they're sitting at the kitchen table, looking at each other. Were they always there? When did... Fuck. No way we fit 8. No goddamn way. Of course the cars worked in the morning. We open up a call between us and remain in constant contact till we've all gone far enough that I can breathe again. That we can all breathe again, and that the sun is over our heads. And we drive for hours. We must have been driving all day when we finally stop. And when we all get out, we realize it then and there. Paul and Alan never came with us. I don't know how we missed it. They were just gone. You know the rest. The searches, the interviews, the interrogations, military police, investigators. No. I never went back. I'm never going back. Because when we drove out of that place, I felt a force tug at me that I hadn't felt since the last time that I saw my wife. The ocean. I felt that terrifying current pull at me when we drove away from the cottage. Exactly like the day that Kelly was ripped away from me and no one ever saw her again. I'll never go back. I'll never go back to that cottage.